Thank you. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is Bethany. I'm an educator with Singer Sewing. I am back again this month. So this is our second class this month. And today we're going to be making a lanyard, lip balm holder, and mini wallet. Now that's kind of a lot to make in one short little class. So we're really just going to focus on the mini wallet because it has the most steps. And so I want to make sure that you all feel comfortable with that. Of course, you can learn how to make the whole thing in the written tutorial that has beautiful photos that'll walk you through how to make the lanyard and the chapstick or lip balm holder. But this is what we're making today. So this is the lanyard. You can shorten this, and I have this in the written tutorial. You can shorten this to make it into a wristlet if you would prefer that. We have our lip balm holder here, and then we have our little mini wallet, which is what we're going to sew up together today in class. So we're going to do that. I just wanted to make sure you saw what we're sewing, that you're in the right class today. As Chanel said, when we go through this class, this is all recorded. So if you miss a step or need additional help or watch something again, it's recorded. It'll be available on Michael's YouTube either in the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, I do have two wonderful, lovely assistants today, Amy and Amy Mulroney and Amy McMullen. And they're going to be in the chat today assisting with your questions. So if you have questions about the products that I'm using, the one that says Amy Singer, she's going to drop links. She's already dropped the PDF for the project write-up. Amy McMullen is also an educator with me at Singer Sewing, and she is going to help with any sewing-related questions, unless she feels like it's something I need to repeat or show again, and she'll chime in and let me know here during our class. I'll do my best to keep an eye on the chat as well, but again, my back's kind of to it today with their setup. So just real quick, the machine I'm sewing on today is our Singer Heavy Duty 6700C, which just means it's a computerized machine. I personally am a big fan of computerized machines. It just makes the process and the sewing experience more efficient and enjoyable. And we recently did a whole class on computerized sewing machines. So if you missed that in August, go back and watch that Michael's class, because that was a great one. But we're going to be using this, so you'll see me talk about some of the features on this machine. If you have any questions about it, just let us know in the chat and we'll do our best to answer it as well. All right, are you guys ready to start making up this little mini wallet together? I'm so excited. I picked out some different fabric today, so I'll show it to you real quick. I've got just a cotton for our lining, but I'm using, look how cute this little mushroom fabric is. I thought it was a cool vibe for fall. And this is actually more of like a canvas. It's not a heavy duty canvas, but it's more of a canvas material. And so I am going to be using that, which is a little different than the one I used in the tutorial. It's all cotton fabric. So it's just good to see that you can sew this up with other materials, not just all cotton. You can use canvas. On our heavy duty machines, you could even turn this into like a faux leather project, a vinyl project. So that's always fun. You may need to adjust your seam allowances a little bit for those thicker materials. But other than that, you could sew this up in some really cool stuff. So I can't wait to see what you choose to make it out of. But today we're going to use canvas and cotton. And oh, she just said, I love my Singer Heavy Duty 6700C. It is so good. It's why I use it all the time. So I've already, since I showed you the little fabric, I already made the lanyard in the mushroom fabric, because this is literally one strip of fabric that you fold over a couple of times, top stitch, and you add our lobster claw. I am going to take a minute to show you the hardware, because if you've never made anything that requires hardware, like a bag or something like this, sometimes the terms of these hardware pieces can be a little new. And I'm speaking from experience. I don't do a ton of bag making, so sometimes you've got to see it to understand what this is. So in the tutorial, the 1/2 inch lobster clasp, I'm going to try to hold this up as best I can, is this right here. Now, this one's kind of got more of a curved bottom because that's just what I had on hand. If you have a square bottom or whatever shape, that's fine. It doesn't have to be a big lobster claw. You can choose to use a bigger one, but this will fit this piece right here, our lanyard. So that's that hardware piece. For the lip balm holder, which I've already sewn this one up, I did it in just the cotton. So it kind of, you could see all the colors. And I've got my chapstick in here. And this is just a ring and it slides on, it separates just like a key ring. Okay. And then the other piece of hardware that we're going to use today when we sew up the mini wallet is called a D-ring. Maybe if I turn it this way, there you go. And this is what we're going to be attaching to our mini wallet so that it can also attach to our lobster claw. So everything clips into that lobster claw and stays attached, and makes it really easy to take things off if you need to, just like this. Simple enough? All right, any questions so far? I don't really see anything. We love our heavy duty line. Yes. And the computerized technology. You know, technology is growing a lot in the sewing industry. We were just talking about this the other day. And if you missed our class a couple weeks ago, we kind of took a look back on all the projects we've done with Michaels and Singer over the last 2.5 years. It's been a lot. And so we have so many videos already on Michael's YouTube channel. So you can always go to their YouTube channel and just search Singer Sewing Projects, and you'll probably find a ton of stuff that we've already done. But what we're doing next, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Our next class is in just a couple of weeks. Amy will put it in the chat at the end of class, but we're going to be introducing a new computerized machine to the audience here that does embroidery. I'm really excited about it. It's Wi-Fi in it. It's amazing. It's just amazing. So we'll talk about that at the end of the class, so you guys can be reminded to sign up for the next one. But let's get started in our project. And what we're going to start with is our little piece that we're going to cut out that is for our D-ring that I just showed you. So this is we're gonna sew this up first. So this is just how you sew up the lanyard, and everything is very similar. It's a piece of fabric, you fold it in half, and then you open that up and you fold those two raw edges into that center, and then you fold it in half again. So it's completely enclosing all of those raw edges, and we're gonna top stitch that. So let me switch over to this camera and see if I can get it to focus. I don't know why it's not all of a sudden. There we go. Sometimes it's a little stubborn. All right, so I have just a regular needle in here. I've got white cotton thread, nothing fancy, and I'm going to top stitch down both edges of this little piece here. Real simple. Now, when you're top stitching, you're going to want to set your machine to a straight stitch that is a 3mm stitch length. So you see I've already got it set right here, is 3mm stitch length. Now, this is one of the features on most of our computerized machines that I absolutely love is this button right here. It's the needle up down button. So when you're starting something small like this on the edge, you're starting really close to the edge, like when you're top stitching, it's nice to have that option to drop that needle to really secure your place when you're getting started in the sewing. So let me kind of bring this in, and I'm going to do just a couple little back stitches here, and we're going to go all the way down this edge. There we go. Cut my threads, turn it around, and go right back down the other edge to close in that fold. Go. There we go. All right, so now I've got all these strings. Now I am going to snip all my threads. Now, if you can see this, I have my scissors on one of these little lanyard pulls, and it just clips to my cord, my presser foot, or my foot control on the floor, that cord, and it just helps me not lose my scissor snips, because I feel like I set them down and they just grow legs and walk away. I don't know if anybody else struggles with that. And I have so many pairs of snips, and when I need them, even just one pair, I can never find them. All right, so now that we have this top stitched, we're going to slide our ring on just like this. And I personally, because of how we're going to attach this, I'm just going to do a couple of stitches along the edge just so it stays in place. We are going to stitch it in with our wallet, but personally, I just think it helps kind of hold it down so it doesn't come undone when we sew the whole thing together. You don't have to back stitch or anything. It's just a little placeholder. There we go. There's lots of little threads to trim on this project as we do these little steps. Okay. So we've done the first part of our little mini wallet here, and I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to take our other pieces here. Now this is, let me switch the cameras real quick. Probably easier to see from here. In the project instructions, when you cut these pieces out for the outside and the inside of the wallet, it's going to be a rectangular piece. And all I did is took a coffee mug and I put it on the corner so that the edge of the mug touched both edges of the fabric here, like here and here. And I just traced that curve and I cut it out, and I did it for both my outside piece and my lining piece so that they match. So you don't trim off a whole lot, but that curve just gives a really nice finished edge to the finished wallet. You can see that here. You don't have to do that curve. It's totally optional. If you really like the crisp corners and you're really good at getting crisp corners, you can do that. If you want to do the curve, you can. So that's what we're going to do today. And I also wanted to mention that I am using a directional fabric, and it's upside down right now when you're looking at it this way. But if you choose to use a directional fabric, please remember that this is going to fold over. And when it folds over this way, you want to make sure that it is going the right direction. Now the back is going to be upside down, but that's the back of it. It's going to be up against me. You're not going to really see that. But this part is right side up. And when you open it, it's right side up. So when you're using directional fabric, just keep that in mind and know that you might get thrown off by that a little bit, but it's okay if it does. So let's switch back. We're going to start with we're going to start with the little inside pocket pieces, and that is these pieces right here. So all I've done is for our outside main body piece, which is this one right here, and for the outside of the inside pocket, which is also my little mushroom. So the reason I chose two different fabrics is so we could tell the outside from the inside in the video. I don't know if you can tell on here, I have already fused a medium weight, lightweight interfacing on here on my outside pieces, the little mushroom pieces. So I have it on this and I have it on my pocket piece. The reason we're using that is it just gives the little wallet more stability and shape and structure. If you're using like a faux leather or vinyl, you would not need to use interfacing. If you're using just cotton, you would need to use like a medium to even heavyweight interfacing. For this canvas, I chose like a light to medium interfacing. So it's based on the material that you're choosing to sew this up with. Okay, so we're building this in little pieces. So for this pocket, this is going to go on the inside of the wallet. And this is the lining and the outside piece of this pocket, right sides together. I've already clipped them together. And all we're going to do is stitch across both long ends. And I'm going to just leave my machine at that top stitch setting. Just totally fine. There we go. So all the way across. There we go. We're not sewing down the short ends, just the long ends, because we are going to turn this right side out. And for this project, for all the pieces, when you're top stitching as close to the edge as you can. And then with the seam allowances, they're all going to be 1/4 inch seam allowances. So we're doing very narrow seam allowances for this project. This helps eliminate bulk in this finished project as we're sewing it. If you're using, like I said before, a heavier material, something vinyl, something faux leather or real leather, you may need to increase your seam allowance and then trim down that seam allowance after you sew it together to minimize the bulk, but it'll be easier to sew with a bigger seam allowance. So
Bethany, I have a question.
Sure.
Are we using iron-on interfacing or is
yes. You don't have to use iron-on interfacing, but I chose to use iron-on interfacing, so that was a great question. I pre-cut all of our pieces so our class would go a little smoother today. So yes, it is iron-on interfacing. I find that just easier to use so nothing's getting slipped around or out of place, and it keeps it consistent. But it's totally up to you. If you don't have iron-on, you just have regular interfacing that you want to slide in to the piece, you absolutely can do that too. So great question. All right, so I'm going to turn this little pocket right side out. And I have this little tool here that sometimes just makes it a little easier to get these turned easier, get the sharp corners and clean, crisp seam lines. Because the crisp, clean seam lines is what elevates this finished project. So I'm just going to do a quick little press. I've got a little iron over here off to the side. So just give me 1 second. Pressing is a key step in this project and projects like this. So be sure you take the time to do that. A little press, nice and crisp. How cute. This is going to be adorable. I have a feeling my mom's going to want to take this from me, or maybe one of the Amy's at the office. All right. So we've got our pocket. Now, just for reference, because it helps to see where this is going to be placed. Actually, I know I keep switching the cameras on you guys, but so this is the finished wallet. And this is the pocket we just made, this front pocket. Okay. So that's this piece right here. So it helps to see where these are all going together. All right. So what we want to do next is take our outside wallet piece, our exterior piece, and you see I've got a couple of lines marked here. This bottom line here, you'll see with my little ruler here, is 3/4 of an inch up from this bottom. And that line is where I want to line up my pocket. Now you see I have my mushrooms going this way, but I actually want to turn it this way. This is where you need to place and fold and make sure, especially with directional fabric, that when after you sew it, it's going in the right direction. So this is actually going to get folded like this. So if I turn it upside down when I'm sewing it on, it'll be right side up when it's folded. Okay, I intentionally chose a directional fabric for today's class so we could have this conversation. All right, so because this is the direction I need it to go in, and this is going to be the top of my pocket when it's folded, this is the top that I want to go ahead and top stitch. Okay, so that's why I wanted to show you that. So I'm going to come back to the machine real quick. And we're just going to do a simple top stitch all the way across just this one side, because that's the finished edge of this pocket. There we go. And I chose a cotton fabric today that is fraying a lot. So it's going to be fine. All of my edges are going to be caught into my seams. You won't see any of it when it's done. It just makes some of the sewing part not as cute. Okay, so here's my front piece, and here is that line. The other line that you're going to see marked on here is this little line right here. And this is marking where my little D-ring is going to go, but we're going to turn it in this way. So when we sew it together, it'll turn right side out and be on the outside. So that's marking that. And that is, let's just mark it here. It's about a 5 1/4 inch from that bottom. So you're going to measure from the square bottom 5 1/4 inch up. And that's where that little D-ring piece that we've already sewn is going to go. So I like to mark my pieces so I can see that and make sure I've got everything going in the right direction. Okay, so I am going to fold this like so and place it and clip it to my piece here. Let me get some more clips. Clips are so handy when sewing little wallets and things like this, but if you want to use straight pins, you absolutely can. And then I'm also going to take my D-ring and I'm just going to kind of center it over that line, and I'm going to grab another clip and clip it there. Okay, so that's what we've got so far. Any questions that I need to answer yet? Are we good?
Yes, we are.
Electronic machines still use foot pedals. Absolutely. It's down here on the floor with me. But while we're talking about that, you see this little start stop button, this play pause button. If I were to take my foot out, like unplug the foot, then I could sew with this start stop button and not have to use the foot control, which makes it really nice when you're doing like sequence stitching and decorative stitching and things like that. But if you're someone with, you know, needing different accessibilities to be able to sew, maybe you can't use a presser foot on the floor, then that's another way that you can still sew with a computerized machine using that start stop button. So that's always really nice. And I like to point that feature out to people. All right, so before we add our lining, we are going to stitch right across here. This is going to be the bottom of that pocket when we flip it over. We've already top stitched, so we're going to stitch this part down because that's not a pocket. All right, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to get my little clip over and on my foot. And you want to make sure when you're doing all these stitches that you're doing just 1 or 2 little back stitches at the beginning and the end to secure it. These raw edges are going to get caught up in another seam allowance when we put the front and back together, but it just helps hold everything in place. There we go. The other thing I just thought of is on a computerized machine, our back stitch is a button instead of a lever. So like our mechanical heavy duties have a lever that you have to hold down. If you just need to back stitch 1 stitch and you just press this button once, it just does 1 stitch. So it helps you kind of have a little control over that when you're back stitching, to not let it get away from you, because sometimes it can. Just have to be careful with that foot control. I didn't mean for this to be a class on computerized machines, but you know, I really love them, so I'll always highlight my favorite features. All right, so now that we've got this stitched down here, we're going to lay this lining piece right sides together on top. We want to make sure that this D-ring is going into the center, and we are going to sew around this. So I'm actually going to switch to the other camera for just a second while I clip this together. I'm using, like I said, I'm using clips. And to keep on theme today, I'm using my little mushroom clip bag. How cute is that? My friend Ashley made it for me, and I love it because, as you can see, I have a lot of clips. They're my favorite to use. Let's go around here. Now we are going to not sew all the way around. I mean, we need to be able to turn this right side out. So we're going to not sew a portion of the bottom, and I'm going to mark that so you can see it. So give me just 1 second. I don't know about you guys, but it is, or where you are, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and it is a rainy, gloomy day, and I love it. Those are my favorite days to sew, just to stay locked up in my sewing room or my studio here with you today. And it's perfect. I love those kind of days. We really needed the rain too. So, all right, so I'm going to mark 3 inches here. I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
Yes, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm just chatting.
Marlene just asked, why do you prefer clips over pins?
That's a great question. It's personal preference, but I actually sew a lot of garments. And when you're sewing like stretchy knit fabrics, pins can kind of not really hold that material in place very well. So clips just make it really easy personally. And when you're sewing like really bulky material, like if you were to make this with faux leather or vinyl or something, you would absolutely want to use clips. Some materials, when you stick a pin in it, are not forgiving. Like if you stick a pin in satin, it's going to leave a hole. So personally, if it's a edge to edge that I'm, holding something in place, then I will use a clip. I'm also less likely to stab myself with a clip and hurt myself with a clip. So that's just me. That's my personal preference. And that's why I like to use them. But it is up to you. Some people really love pins, and there's nothing wrong with that. If I was to try to like pin something in the I needed to put something in the middle of a project, obviously I would use pins. So it's preference. But if you've never tried clips, I recommend getting just you can get a little set of them, and They're great. They're wonderful. All right. So now what we're going to do, I marked my bottom here about 3 inches. This is just letting me know, like, hey, Bethany, don't forget you can't sew across there or else you won't be able to turn this right side out and you'll have to get your seam ripper out. Ask me how I know. Sometimes you just get in the zone and you just sew your opening shut. So we're going to start at one end of the opening and sew all the way around the curve and come back across. We are going to catch the edges of the pocket and we are going to catch the D ring right here. Okay. So just keep that in mind. We're going to switch back over to this camera. I don't know if you can hear the thunder in the background. You may not be able to with my sewing and talking and microphone, but it's just so relaxing. All right, so we're going to backstitch and then needle down, lift the foot, pivot, and we're doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around this. Now, as we're making this, I want you to think about, like, if I were to make one, would it be for me? Would it be for someone else as a gift? I feel like these would be perfect gifts for teachers. We have, holidays coming up, and sometimes, like, I don't know what to get them. What would they use? They get a lot of gift cards to Starbucks and stuff. So maybe we want to get them something a little different that they can utilize. And most teachers have a badge that they wear or something like that. So this would be great to put their work badge in, have their classroom keys attached to, all that kind of stuff. So I think for a teacher, it would be super, super cute. A gift idea. And these are scrap buster projects. Like, these projects don't take a lot. This project does not take a lot of material at all. My little D ring flipped up. So I'm going to flip that back so it's just further away from my presser foot. All right, so now it's over here. But anyways, I feel like these are just great projects because they don't take a lot of fabric. These were just scrap fabric that I had laying around in my sewing room that I paired up together today, and they're super cute. So this is a great way to, like, utilize those fabrics that you have laying around that you're like, I don't know what to use. What's left? There we go. We're going to pivot again and just come in a little bit. There we go. And all my clips go right back in my little clip pouch. Okay, so this is what we have now. I'm going to trim a couple of threads and then we're going to turn it right side out. I'm not a huge bag maker, but one of my best sewing friends is, and we were talking about bag making terms, and they call it, like, birthing your bag, which I think is a funny saying. But one thing you want to think about before you turn it is taking the time to just snip the corners. It's going to help you get a cleaner edge. Okay. So if you have a lot of bulk there, you want to make sure you clip those corners. And then I sewed pretty close to this curve, but if you left a little more seam allowance there, you're going to want to trim that down. You can use that with regular scissors, or you can do that with some pinking shears. I don't know if I have enough seam allowance for pinking shears. I can try just to show you. Pinking shears give it a zigzag finish, which helps with fraying. So if your fabric frays a lot, it might be, and this is just dropping all over my lap. It might be a good way to finish, especially with woven fabrics. These like to fray.
Bethany?
Yes.
Did you say what stitch length you are using?
I am keeping it at 3mm stitch length.
Perfect. Thank you.
Even for my construction, it's just a 1/2 millimeter difference. And that way, your top stitching, you want to use 3mm. That's the standard for top stitching. The standard straight stitch is 2.5. So when I turn this machine on and I hit straight stitch, it changes it to 2.5. That's the standard. It always defaults to the standard. But I bump it up 1/2 millimeter to 3mm stitch length. which just, especially if you're sewing over something bulky, it just makes it easier to feed the fabric or the material under the foot using a slightly longer stitch. If you're sewing this with faux leather, you may want to go to 3.5. Totally up to you on what makes it easier to sew. Okay, so I did a little trim there, and I'm gonna birth my wallet. I think that's just funny to say. Have you guys ever heard that term before? Am I just crazy? I just thought it was the funniest term. But they use it and they say it all the time. I think it's funny, but that's, I mean, we are turning it right side out. So now this little ring helps kind of pull. There we go. So this is what it looks like right now. I'm going to take my little tool here. You could use a pen, use several different things. The edge of a ruler. I like to run this along the edge of my seams before I go to press it, especially things that are going to show those edges really crisp in these curves. So I just want to take a second to just helps with like the finished result being really like, that looks professionally made. We take the time to do those little steps like this, and pressing makes all the difference. So I'm going to make sure I get that little bottom corner on both sides of my opening pointed out. So this is what I'm left with. Okay, so this is the outside. That's the lining. When this folds up, it's going to go like that. Like that. We're so close to done. How cute is this? Yeah, I'm maybe keeping this one for myself. All right, so I'm going to give it a quick press. And when I press it, I'm going to take my raw edges of my opening and I'm going to fold them in so that they line up with this edge. And I'm going to press that down. We're going to stitch that shut. So give me just 1 second. Has anybody ever made, while I'm pressing this real quick, has anybody ever made a little wallet or a little mini bag before, or done projects with hardware like this before? This is a great beginner project if you never have. So definitely hope if you're here watching this that afterwards you take some time to like give it a try. As you can see, it comes together pretty quickly, but it is one of those projects where you have to kind of trust the process. It already looks better now that I've pressed it. Look how crisp and clean that is. All right, let me fold these. I got to tuck all this little fraying bits in. So give me just 1 second. If using faux leather, do you need to change the foot? That's a great question. It just depends on the faux leather that you're using, because some of them have like a softer finish on the top and some have more of like a plasticky kind of, I don't want to say like sticky vinyl feel on top. Depends on the faux leather, okay? Depends on the print and the design. If you're having issues sewing it, you can use what's called a non-stick foot. And we do have those for Singer machines. And so they're great when using like vinyls or faux leathers. Sometimes that non-stick foot really just helps it glide under the foot a lot easier. So it can't hurt to use that. Because today I'm just using just the regular all-purpose foot, which you could also use. But if you're having any issues with the material feeding through because of maybe the finish on the top of the material, then you can absolutely switch out for a non-stick foot. You could use a walking foot. That's an option as well. But it's still a metal foot on the top and like on the top where the walking foot. And sometimes that metal can stick to that material. That's why I suggest the non-stick. Okay, so I've pressed my opening in and I'm going to go back to the machine and we're just gonna stitch this shut real quick. All right, give me just 1 second. Do we have any other questions before I start sewing? Is the needle, if the need to be different than the standard for faux leather? I would recommend using a heavy duty needle if you're going to sew with faux leather, or if you're going to sew with like a thicker material, like you can make this out of denim. I would use a heavy duty needle for sure. That's just me though. Okay, so let's get going here. We're going to start at this bottom corner. we want to give this like a nice finished edge all the way around. So instead of just stopping and sewing across the bottom, which you could do, I'm going to stop. Actually, I'm going to go one more stitch. There we go. And I'm going to pivot and we're going to top stitch all the way around this project. Now I don't know if my microphone's picking it up, but this machine is sewing through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6, maybe 8 layers of canvas and cotton right now. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing the material you want to use. Be sure that you're aware of what your machine can handle, okay? Heavy duty machine is handling this like butter. That's why I like to use it a lot, because I can sew all the things with this machine. I don't have to worry about it. When you go around these curves, you may need to leave your needle down and do a couple of little pivots as you go around so you get a nice smooth curve all the way around. There we go. But just keep that in mind when you're sewing and choosing the material to make this with. Maybe you want to start out with just a cotton version and then work your way up to something heavier duty. That's my little iron clicking on and off. There we go. Now, I think if you did this in black, all black, and used a variegated thread. Variegated thread is a thread that changes colors on the spool as you sew it. And so that could be a fun way to add some accent to this project. There we go. I got caught on something. And so we're almost back to around to the other side. We're going to be sure to do a couple of back stitches. There we go. All the way around. Let me trim some threads real quick. I'll show you what we're working with. All right. See how nice and clean this looks all the way around? This is looking so good. So when we go to fold this up, like so, and then we just have to fold it down. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to fold it up just like I did. Take a couple more of my clips. Again, clips come in handy because look how bulky this is now. And we're going to sew up these two sides real quick. We're going to follow that same top stitching we just did. And I like to start at either end, and we're just going to sew up these two sides, okay? There we go. Now, sometimes when you're starting and you've got a bulky beginning, you can start a little bit in to get going and then back stitch a couple. Another option, and we can start over here, is to start at the end that's not as bulky. That's not always an option, depending on your project, but we'll do that for this side. All right, so I'm going to drop the foot. Nice and clean. So there's one side sewn down. Now, what you need to know is I'm starting a little further in. I'm back stitching like 1 stitch or 2 stitches off of this top because this is creating another pocket for us. So we're going to have 2 pockets in this little mini wallet. Okay, so now I'm going to come back to this side and show you. I'm going to start in a little bit, drop my needle, back stitch a couple. Sometimes you just got to get over that hump. There we go. It is a lot. The machine can sew through it really well. Back through here. There we go. And now I'm just going to trim my threads. All right. Any questions so far? Because the last step we have is to attach. We're going to figure out how to close our wallet. And we have a couple of options with closing the wallet. But before we dive into that, do we have any questions? Is everybody like enjoying watching this kind of come together? It's a fun, it's one of those trust the process projects, because we had several pieces we were pinning together. So do you always go off the material when backstitching? It just depends, because this was the very bottom edge. I didn't go all the way off. I stopped just short. It may have been hard to see that on camera, but I did stop just short because I don't want those threads like hanging off. I kind of want them locked into the material. So I didn't for that. But for the other ones, it just kind of depends on how thick it is. Sometimes you can't go all the way to the edge because the material is too thick. But if it's a raw edge, it's going to get caught up in a seam. You don't need to go all the way to the very edge. All right. Does that help answer? It's a really cute project, isn't it? I think I picked the right fabric for today. All right. So all we have to do is fold this over. Now you can do this several different ways. There's a ton of really cute bag closures and little wallet closures that you can get online, and do the little closure that way. You could also, before we sew all this together, you could have attached some Velcro here and some Velcro here, and then made the little Velcro closure. I'm personally cannot stand the sound of Velcro being ripped apart. So I choose to go the snap route, which is this little closure right here, and I don't have to worry about it coming open. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to move my machine back so you guys can see with this other camera how I'm going to do. Let me turn this down a little bit before I move it to this camera. So this is the last step. I want to make sure that you guys can see it. All right, so here's my little wallet. Now I've already got my snap pieces. I'm using white today, and then I have this handy dandy tool here. You can get snap kits on lots of places. They may even have them at Michael's. I'm not 100% sure. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little ruler. I'm going to fold this down, and I'm going to measure about 1/2 inch up from the edge of my curve here. Can you guys see that? I'm going to measure 1/2 inch up, and I'm going to, this is a friction pin. Okay. So friction pins will erase with heat. So if you think I'm writing on this, it's not permanent, I promise. So this is 1/2 inch up, and then, so see, there's my little mark. And then I'm going to find the center, because I want to make sure my snap's in the middle. Hold on, let me move these out of the way so I don't drop them on the floor. All right. Oh, sorry. I'm bumping everything, aren't I? All right. So I wasn't far off from the center. It's 4 inches wide. So I'm just going to do that right there. All right. So that's where I want my front snap to go. Now, when you're using like a canvas or a heavier material, you may need to use like a stiletto or something like this to kind of punch the hole in. But if you're just using cotton, the little pokey on the back of the head of the snap, it's pretty sharp, and it usually does a good job of poking through. So I'm going to see if I can poke it through. It's a little tough. I'm going to use my little stiletto here. It just makes it easier. There we go. Nice clean circle. So now that I have my circle, I'm actually gonna, I touched the iron to that material for 2 seconds and it made that ink go away. How fun is that? It's like magic. If you ever do quilting or anything like that, those friction pins are amazing. Okay, so I'm going to put, it's called the female end. There's a female snap end, and then there's a male snap end, okay? I'm gonna put, what did I do on this one? I'm gonna put the male end on the opening here. So it goes just like that. There's like little bumpies. I don't know if you can see that. I know my camera keeps trying to focus. Those go onto the fabric, and when you use this tool, you want to make sure that this flat head end is what lays in this black base right here. Okay. So for me, I find it easier to set this down on the table and keep it nice and level. And you just want to clamp really hard. All right, so there's my top snap. Okay, now my bottom snap, I want to go on just this front pocket, and I want to make sure that they line up. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press down really hard and see if it'll make a little indentation. It does, it's right there. So that's where I want my other opposite end of my snap to go. So I'm going to poke my little hole just through that front pocket. We're not poking all the way through. And this time the flat end is going to go on the inside of the pocket and come through that hole. And the female end, which is the round, it looks like a little donut, a little rounded end, is going to go right on top of there. We're going to slide it up onto our little clamp and press it down really good. Snaps are really easy to use. I've used them so many times for projects, and now it's snapped shut. And my little mushrooms are going the same direction. How cute is that? So I have a pocket here, and I have a pocket here, and it closes shut. Okay, well, this turned out really stinking cute. All right, so let's clip it all to my lanyard. I chose to go lanyard because I have a work trip in a couple of weeks, and we have to have like IDs and stuff with us, and I'm going to be doing a lot of things. So I thought, and I always have to have my lip balm, like I'm addicted. So so I was like, this is perfect, because then I don't have to keep up with a purse or worry about sitting it down. And I could shorten this if I needed to, but how cute. I hope you guys like it. You said you love it. I love my snap tool. I add snaps to my kitchen towels to keep them from falling off the oven handle. That is so smart. Yes, snaps are a great thing. I've made dog bandanas with snaps, so it's easier to get them on and off my pets. And there's not some big bulky knot. They love those. So anyways, any questions about the project? Again, the full tutorial will teach you how to also make the lip balm and the lanyard, but they're so easy. This little wallet is really easy, but there's a lot of steps, and I just wanted to make sure we went through those together today. So I hope you take some time to make these. These make great stocking stuffers, great teacher's gifts. You know, your work bestie might need one. I think Amy are going to want a couple of these. But if you have any questions, you can always leave them in the description or in the comments of the video on Michael's YouTube as well. All right, now our next class, as I mentioned, because I only have a few more minutes with you, Amy already said yes, she wants one. Our next class is coming up in a couple of weeks. Amy Mulroney, can you throw out the date? I can't remember the date of that class. It's on a Thursday. It's at noon.
I'm submitting the link in just a moment, and I'll grab the date too.
Okay, thanks. We usually try to do them on Thursdays at noon. We have 2 classes in October. Both of our classes are going to be introducing you to some new products that are going to be carried at Michael's that are Singer products. So she just dropped the first one, and it is introducing you to the new Singer SE9180 sewing and embroidery machine. Now, I've kind of teed this up earlier at the beginning of class because I can see it sitting right over there. And I'm so excited to show it to you. It's an embroidery machine, but it's also a sewing machine. It's got this whole screen right here is touch screen. It's Wi-Fi enabled. It works with our MySewNet embroidery software. It's the first Singer machine to ever be Wi-Fi enabled and work with an embroidery software. So we're super excited about it. It's amazing. It stitches beautifully, and I cannot wait to show you it. So if you're interested in embroidery, and this is a great entry-level embroidery machine, but it does all the things, okay? If you're interested in any of that, be sure to sign up for our next class, October 12th at noon. And then at the end of October, towards the end of October, we're going to come back in a couple of weeks. After that, it's not going to be me. I'm going to be in the chat. For once, I'm usually on camera. It's going to be my colleague, Amanda Tadaro. She is our Ditto educator. So I don't know if you've heard about Ditto, but it's a new product by Singer, and it is a projection system for sewing patterns, specifically garment sewing patterns, but they have men's, women's, children, and crafting patterns in the Ditto pattern catalog. I've got my ditto set up right across the room from me, and I love using it because it eliminates the need for paper patterns and it adjusts to your own size measurements with the ditto patterns. Like there's so much to learn about it. So if sewing garments intimidates you and you want to be set up for success, or you're just interested in learning about the ditto and how that projection system works, be sure you come back at the end of October for Amanda's class, and I'll be in the chat answering all those questions. Could you hold up the lipstick pouch to the camera one more time? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm gonna hold up this one because it's got the little chapstick in it. Now, if you're carrying like a lip gloss, this is set to the size of just a standard chapstick. Okay. If you're carrying a lip gloss or an actual lipstick that's bigger, you may need to adjust the size of this. You could make it longer for a lip gloss. If you've got a longer tube, you can make it wider and deeper for like a bigger lipstick. But yeah, that's it. And it just all clips together. Easy enough. All right. And then Amy just put the link to the second class of October about the ditto. So click on both of those, sign up for both of those. You're not going to want to miss them. And then we'll be back in November. And I'm going to be teaching a quilted wall hanging project. This is going to be teaching you different ways to do quilted wall hangings. You might have noticed, let me see if I can turn my camera. You can't see the whole thing, but this is my little witch's garden quilted wall hanging. And this is actually just a panel. So there was no piecing, but I quilted it and I added the bindings. We're going to talk about how to make those. And we're also going to talk about how to make ones where you do some piecing as well. And we're going to go through the binding process, the quilt sandwich process. It's going to be fabulous. So if any of that's ever interested you, come back for that. We have a lot of stuff coming up, don't we? Isn't it a cute little quilt? I love quick projects like this. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you guys spending some time with me today. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and I hope you take some time to make this project. And if you do, and you share it on your social media, be sure to use the hashtag #SingerSewing and the hashtag make it with Michaels so that we can see your finished ones. Otherwise, I don't get to see them. So I would love to see what you made, the material you chose to use, and how you got creative with it. So until next time, thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye.